So one of the big questions has been, what is Cory Barlog working on? We've seen every announcement under the sun from Sony Santa Monica, or leak under the sun from Sony Santa Monica. But what's eluded us for so long is, what is Cory Barlog working on? Is it a new IP? There were rumors that he was working on a sci-fi new IP, and that sounded really cool because, to be honest, like, Sony Santa Monica has dedicated their whole studio consistently to God of War. It's what brought them back from the brink. It's also what almost destroyed them. So it was kind of exciting to know, oh, here comes the God of War remake trilogy, and we'll get into rumors about what's going on with another God of War game. It's like, okay, a lot of God of War happening. Like, surely Cory is working on something different. And he is, kinda. We finally have some information on the game that we can take to the bank, because we saw on a Reddit thread that people have been like dancing around what exactly this new thing from Cory is. Like, here, we can look at everything we know so far. You can see here, confirmed to be directed by Cory Barlog. It's neither new IP nor sci-fi. It's not licensed. We'll talk about this one from Tom Henderson in a little bit here. It's not an Atreus-focused game. It shouldn't be in 2028. The game is scheduled for 27. So we've been dancing around this shit for so long, and it seems like everyone knows, but now it looks like the cat's out of the bag, thanks to a LinkedIn post, of all things here. This was put up on Reset Era, and it looks like they're developing a new franchise within the God of War universe. Here we have the posting from a senior writer who's been there for 5 years, saying, help shape the narrative vision and creative direction at Sony Santa Monica Studio for a new franchise within the God of War universe, developing characters, storylines, and original lore that expanded the acclaimed IP, integrated story with gameplay and world building through scripts and narrative content, collaborating across disciplines to deliver emotionally driven experiences for a global audience, contributed to a long-term narrative and franchise strategy. So the question from that point is, who are we playing as in the God of War universe? I kind of like the idea of this. I'm like, yeah, we've only seen Kratos this whole time, and like, I always think about how there's a reason the Greek series started to fail, is because we got God of War 1, 2, 3, Ghost of Sparta, Chains of Olympus, Ascension, 6 Greek games. Like, there was so much of this form of Kratos. Yeah, people got a little tired of it. And now the iconic dad Kratos gets 2 games. Admittedly, I have not played and beat Ragnarok yet, but I'm going to before June, because it seems like that's at least the limit to when this is going to get announced. But I'm going to try to get this one under my belt for additional context. But now we have an idea of who we're going to be playing as. And that comes from Nate the Hate, who is about as official as you can get on information. This guy has always been spot on. And we have the write-up here on Twitter. He says, here's what I have heard. Yes, this game is set within the God of War universe, and the lead character will be Faye. Gameplay is said to differ from the Norse God of War games, with more of a focus on action. The current plan is reveal it this year and release it in the first half of 27, barring any sort of delay. Okay, so you're playing as Kratos' wife. How about that? Now, what's interesting as well is, on top of this information, we have Nate, who's quote tweeting WCCF Tech, and then we have Special Nick of Day One, who is quote tweeting Nate, saying, yep, matches everything I was told. Didn't hear anything about the mythology involved or anything, just that it was Faye and more action-focused. Probably closer in style to Devil May Cry than the newer God of War games, sort of. At least that's how it was described to me, which is obviously really interesting, because for all we can kind of joke about with the Dad of War stuff, I feel like Sony Santa Monica is really cooked on their gameplay, and so that's exciting at the very least. But I can also say that ever since Schreier shut down the whole, it's not a new IP, it's not sci-fi, it's not licensed, I was like, okay, so we're kind of doing more God of War. I'm going to keep it on mind, but there is a level of like quiet disappointment, because we've had so much God of War, and it feels like this is like a move that they've tricked themselves into thinking is like risk averse, but it's still kind of qualified as a risk, because we're building Faye as that new face within this God of War universe. And we know, thanks to a recent report from Jason Schreier, that boy, oh boy, does PlayStation want their own Marvel Cinematic Universe. We talked about how Bluepoint was pitching a number of games after their God of War game was shut down. And in the write-up by Jason Schreier here, this is what we learned about their vision for the God of War game, which will kind of loop back into what's happening here at Sony Santa Monica. Following the purchase, Bluepoint continued its work helping Sony Santa Monica Studio with the development of God of War Ragnarok, released in 2022. After that, the newly acquired PlayStation Studio had ambitions to make its own game rather than co-developing or remaking games by other companies. At the same time, Sony was all in on live service games designed for continual monetization after launch. One of those games would be Bluepoint's first original title under PlayStation, a live service game in the God of War franchise, which the organization hoped would support several sequels and spin-offs like its own smaller version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Bluepoint began working on a game in which the character Atreus would fall into Hades. According to people familiar with the project, the loose idea was for players to control different versions or aspects of Atreus as they battled through Greek hell, and to have some sort of cooperative gameplay and ongoing support, although much of the game's design was in flux. And I said this in my Mr. Matty video on it, but it sounds like it because I don't see the live service in any of that. But basically, this was the vision. You had a potential, like when Sony was looking down from the top, you had these God of War games with Kratos doing its thing. You had Bluepoint, who was going to make its own smaller version of the MCU with Atreus being the face of those God of War games. So they were not making a, again, God of War game, but a God of War franchise of their own. And now you've got Cory, who's working on another division of the God of War franchise where you're going to play as Faye, who is Kratos' wife, and go into whatever adventures as her. Again, interesting concept on the Devil May Cry style gameplay, at least the way it was described. That sounds really cool. That sounds a little bit more in line with OG God of War as well, but that's strange because we know they're remaking OG God of War. And that's why the disappearance of Bluepoint is still so baffling to me, because I'm just like, if you're now having Sony Santa Monica remake God of War, we're going to talk about another new God of War they're doing, and then they're working on a character-driven game in the God of War universe. It's very clear Sony wants this to be massive. If all I've said to you is anything to go by, and we haven't even talked about the elephant in the room, the TV show, which has had great casting so far, but we see its first shot here, which has been getting made fun of a lot online. And the lead actor for Kratos in this show said not to believe everything you see online. I'm like, excuse me, what? This is from Amazon, officially. And if you genuinely ask me how I felt when I first saw this image, by the way, I thought I was being a hater when I first saw this image, because I said to a buddy privately, I was like, if you told me this is AI generated, I wouldn't be surprised, because the characters look fine, but they're like, this doesn't look like a Kratos action, but then like, it's to me the background, the foreground, it's the angle, and it's the slight hunch. Like, I don't know if it's deliberate or not, but it has a lot of AI energy to it. And the other thing is, like, dude, it's God of War. Like, this is what we're doing to show off God of War. The watching Atreus do something, like not fighting or something like that, or anger, or like a calm anger, like that sort of Kratos. But anyway, the point being, and my thoughts on the image aside, see all these different divisions of God of War that Sony has greenlit. New IP within the, or not, sorry, not new IP, but new main character within the universe. So a new God of War story. We're continuing Kratos' story. We also have a show. We had Bluepoint trying to make its own live service thing. Like, Sony deeply believes God of War can be even bigger than it already is now. And this will be its greatest test, because we've been through a cycle of God of War fatigue before. We know how this ends with Ascension. So I think it's a wise idea to get into a new character, and I'll reserve full judgment, but I can't act like at face value that I don't see, like, oh, Cory's like a renowned director is working on something new, and like, it's just a new character within the universe that we've experienced a lot of. So I hope the angle they take is unique, and I'm sure, again, I'm not going to talk out my ass too much here. I'm sure by playing Ragnarok and understanding that vision more, I could see more potential in it. So I don't want to, again, comment too heavily, other than just at face value, it's a little bit of a tougher sell for me personally. Again, Sony Santa Monica is working on more games than that. We already talked about the God of War remake, but we also have information on this new mainline God of War game, potentially. And it's really hard to tell if, like, what Christopher Judge was talking about in a leaked clip that we saw online of him mentioning, like, yeah, our game's going to be revealed this summer. If that is going to be this new God of War game with Kratos, presumably, or is Christopher Judge going to be part of Faye's storyline as Kratos? Like, is he a side character? That's what I'm so interested to see how they're thinking about this. But nonetheless, what we have here is a clip that comes from Insider Gaming, and they're talking about what to expect from this Egyptian-themed God of War game. So let's take a listen here.
There is the Metroidvania game in development, and then there's also a new mainline God of War game in development.
I just want to pause for a second. I forgot about the Metroidvania game. Add that to the list of God of War titles. Okay, let's continue on here.
I can't. Yeah, but I think that like what Prince of Persia's got or whatever.
Scimitar.
Like
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. There is the Metroidvania game in
So,
development.
yeah, what you hear here is that there is an Egyptian-themed God of War game, and that's on top of everything else that's happening. So a lot of people, when they heard this, the original deduction was like, oh, Cory's working on something new entirely, because there's no way that we're going to like see two God of War games in development at the same studio, but they're going all in on that. Then we get another interesting layer. IGN reports God of War actor Christopher Judge says, you'll be hearing about what we're doing probably late summer. The legendary voice behind God of War's recent iteration of Kratos, Christopher Judge, has teased when we'll likely get news about the franchise in late summer. According to a recording from streamer and YouTuber, I don't know how to say that, at Canada's Fan Expo, Judge, who may not have known he was being recorded at the time, we'll talk about that in a little bit here, confirmed that while he would not be playing in the remake, that role is for Kratos' original voice actor, T.C. Carson. He said, you'll be hearing about what we are doing probably late summer. So that sounds to me like Gamescom. The suggestion here is that Judge is back working with Sony Santa Monica on a separate God of War project, unrelated to the studio's early work beginning to remake the franchise's original trilogy and the new side-scrolling spin-off Sons of Sparta, which was largely made elsewhere. Interestingly, Judge also explained that the recently announced remake starring T.C. Carson will boast all new technology in it, adding more stuff such as a new fighting system. And so that's a whole other can of worms that I wanted to talk about as well. But I think the first thing I really wanted to get out of the way here is like, you're going to sneakily record Christopher Judge. Like, I feel bad for him because I know voice actors and actresses do this all the time. They try to like hook up someone at the convention with like a little something, right? Just a little bit of something, like just keeping it casual, talking transparently with them. And maybe at worst case scenario, they wander off the Reddit and they're like, hey, I'm someone, you have no idea who I am. But guess what? Like Christopher Judge told me this is it, and this are happening. And people go, oh yeah, right. And then when it happens later, it's like, see, I told you. That's like a cycle that I've noticed a lot of actors and actresses get into. There's a trust and they're excited about these things. Do I think he maybe been a little too trustful here with how much he was sharing across God of War Remake, reveal plans, all that stuff? Yes. But nonetheless, this adds some layers to it. And I think that, again, secretly recording this dude, he wouldn't have said any of this if he knew. And so I think that was unfair to him. We now know the God of War Remake is going to change some things. We have a new gameplay system, new stuff. I imagine they're going to add in probably a new camera perspective if they're changing the gameplay, new technology. So it looks like it's more from the ground up. It's not kind of like what we got with Oblivion, where they just made the game look better. Again, what I'm interested to know is if they're going to chain together all these God of War games into one experience, or if they're going to do them all separately. So that'll be interesting to see. But late summer is when we're going to learn more about it. And that lines up with, again, what Nate the Hate was saying here, where the reveal this year and release first half of 2027, barring any delays for this Faye focused game. So Sony Santa Monica is in an interesting spot. That's 3 projects, all just wheel spinning. Again, I would be so surprised if they are handling the remake trilogy by themselves. Again, it just makes no sense why Bluepoint had to go if they were working on their own God of War stuff. That project didn't work out, but they had all their own God of War stuff to maybe help remake God of War 1, 2, 3. Like, I don't think 3 really needs a remake, but I digress. Like, it just seems weird how this is all played out. So right now we have 3 different God of War projects happening here at Sony Santa Monica. That's interesting. Unless like because again, the new game that they're talking about starring Faye, is that like also involving Kratos in Egypt? I'm like, no, right? This is a separate thing. I still feel a little confused on the whole matter, but nonetheless, things will be made clear this summer, it seems like. So I got a little bit of time before I finally play God of War Ragnarok, which if anyone's wondering why I never played it, it's just because like burnt out on the Sony style game. You know, I will critique Xbox till the ends of the earth, but at the same time, they do put out a good variety of exclusives, or when they did exclusives, I guess first party games that are of all different shapes and sizes. And I appreciate that. Sony's sort of third person over the shoulder approach. It's like, I've seen this before and it's not interesting or appealing and I need more. And so now I know that there's more on the way and it's going to be different. So that makes me excited and interested in parts of what this Faye action game will be. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, that's the very complex write up on what's going on here with Sony Santa Monica. So we'll see. We'll see in due time. It seems like late summer, Gamescom time, opening night live, we'll have our answers. Jason, I'm not whining. I'm just saying, like, I'm excited more for Faye than more like God of War. Does that make sense? Like, I'm also I think it's fair to be a little trepidatious with what's going on right now with God of War, where it's like, okay, TV show, new character getting their own mainline series, Kratos series continuing, remakes, a side-scrolling spinoff. Like, you can see the vision Sony has. Like, this is going to be our MCU. Like, there's a God of War MCU. I'm a little worried about that.